small amount of animus on my part toward the New World Translation, as we will see. Number 6, Jehovah has an organization, the faithful and discreet slave of Matthew 24:45. If you think about Matthew 24, remember the faithful and discreet slave who, even though his master is away, he doesn't act like the master is away, he remains faithful, so on and so forth. The society identifies with themselves, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, based in Brooklyn, New York. And if you want to know all things Watchtower, their website is watchtower.org. And that's where you can get official information, so on and so forth, about the Watchtower Society. This is Jehovah's only organization on earth. There is not a group of organizations. You are either associated with the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, or you are in rebellion against Jehovah God. That's all there is to it. It's just that simple. It's a very black and white world for Jehovah's Witnesses at that particular point. Number 7, there are 3 groups in salvation. I remember very clearly one of the first theological things I remember as a young person, I grew up in a pastor's home, was the fact that when we lived in Pennsylvania, right across from my backyard was a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. And so, my dad told me, well, these people believe that only 144,000 people are going to heaven, and all the rest of this stuff. And it was right around the time where they had the 1975 prophecy. In fact, we left Pennsylvania in 74, so they were ramping up to that. And I just remember a lot about those folks. And so the first group is called the anointed class. Now, what's the word anointed in Hebrew? Anyone? Mashiach, Messiah. That's what the Messiah means, the anointed one. And the Greek word for anointed is Christos, Christ. So this is the Christ class. The Christ class. And it's made up of 144,000 individuals. No more, no less. It's not meant to be taken as a non-literal number, anything like that. They may be moving toward that now, to be perfectly honest with you, but it hasn't happened yet. It has always been taught to be 144,000 literal individuals from the time of Pentecost until the Battle of Armageddon. That's not a lot of people over 2,000 years period of time. That's a fairly small number of individuals. The anointed class would include everyone. Basically, this would be directly connected to what we would identify as salvation. These people are in Christ, they are justified, they're in the new covenant. And if you ask, well, how do you know whether you're one of the anointed class, I'll answer that in just a few moments. Right now, I'll just have to skip that and show you how this works later. There is very little chance, very, very, very little chance, that the witness knocking on your door or passing out watchtowers at the airport claims to be of the anointed class. The vast majority of the anointed class today is found only in Brooklyn, New York. So if you're visiting Brooklyn, you might run into some folks who call themselves of the anointed class. But very, very, very small chance that you would run into someone on the island who claims to be of the anointed class. Instead, the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses, 99.99% of them, are part of the great crowd. The great crowd. And they do not, the terminology they would use is that the anointed class has a heavenly hope and the great crowd has an earthly hope. So the 144,000, when they die, they are resurrected as spirit beings and they rule and reign with Christ, who is one of the 144,000, because it's the Christ class. The great crowd are resurrected as physical beings, and they live forever in a paradise earth. And that, therefore, if I really want to cut to the chase and talking to Jehovah's Witnesses and say, do you have a heavenly hope or an earthly hope? That's not the type of terminology we normally would use, but that's the type of terminology. That's their language at that point. So 99.99% of the people that you will talk to at the door claim to be of the great crowd. And then it's real easy. I mean, Watchtower Society thought and practice is black and white. Then there's everyone else. So it doesn't matter if you're a Baptist or a Presbyterian or Eastern Orthodox or Assemblies of God or a Buddhist or a Mormon or a Muslim. You're all just everyone else. You are apostate religion. You are under Jehovah's wrath. That's just all there is to it. It's just that simple. Those are the three groups. When Armageddon takes place, whenever that is, and it's always held out to be, it could happen this very day. When Armageddon takes place, then everyone who is not associated with the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society will be wiped off the face of the earth. And if you die in that judgment, you will not be resurrected. If you die the day before that, you will be resurrected during the millennium, taught Jehovah's ways, and given an opportunity to live forever in paradise on earth. But there will be a great test at the end of the millennium. And even Jehovah's Witnesses of the great crowd do not have any guarantee that even they will pass the test of faithfulness at the end of the millennium. There is no concept of acceptance and security in Watchtower theology. It's just not there. And so you can see in the mind of the follower of the Watchtower, they've been taught that if they listen to what you're saying and they in their heart and mind disassociate from the society and embrace what you're talking to them about, and Armageddon happens the next day, they're going to be wiped out with no opportunity of resurrection whatsoever. They'll never have any opportunities whatsoever. They'll just be wiped out. And so that's sort of one of the ways the society keeps its people in, is by basically saying, you never know. I mean, if you'd have to be absolutely certain that we're wrong, because if we're right and Armageddon happens tomorrow, so much for you. You don't have any opportunity of resurrection. Okay? Now, I said that there's an interesting way that they know basically exactly how many of the anointed class are still left on earth. Not exactly, but they've got a good idea. This is how they know. The society has what is called the Memorial Supper. And it takes place on Nisan 14, that is the day of Passover, normally the Thursday before Easter in our calendar. In 1974, click, there we go. 4.5 million people gathered around the world to observe the Memorial Supper, but only 10,723 of those 4.5 million people actually partook of the elements. Let me explain what that means. When you see the Kingdom Halls around here locally, if you've stopped and looked at them or visited or something like that, or just stopped and maybe read the sign outside, you'll see there are a number of congregations that meet in that Kingdom Hall. In Phoenix, it's very common to have 2 English and then 1 Hispanic, or 2 Hispanic and 1 English congregations meeting in a particular Kingdom Hall on a staggered schedule, which makes sense when you think about it. I mean, you build one building and you have 3 different congregations that can utilize that one building. Not only does that make economic sense, but you've got 3 different congregations that are helping to maintain the building as well. And so you have that going on. How then could everybody meet at once on one night? If all 3 congregations met at the same time, the building wouldn't contain it. And so what they do is they rent halls, lecture halls, library meeting rooms, high school auditoriums, etc., for that one night, so that all Jehovah's Witnesses and all people interested in Jehovah's Witnesses can meet at one time. The number there then represents much more of the people, the range of people that the society is impacting, is that number, much more than even the active publishers. What would happen then is the elements, the bread and the wine, are passed down these rows, and the elders walk along the sides, and they are watching very carefully. And in the vast majority of those meeting places, the elements are simply passed by every person in the room. The bread will get to the back of the room untouched. The wine untouched. but they're watching. And if someone partakes, they make note of that. Now, if they don't know who you are, and you don't have a lengthy history with the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, they're not going to consider your action to be relevant. But especially around Brooklyn, you're somebody who's been with the society for 40 years, you're in leadership, you partake, that is your way of stating, I am of the anointed class. Because the Lord's Supper is the new covenant meal. And by partaking of it, you're saying, I'm part of the new covenant, and only the anointed class is in the new covenant. The great crowd only has the benefits of association with the anointed class. So it's a two-tiered system. I remember this one, I need to find this. Every time I do this presentation, I keep forgetting to do this. There's this great graphic. It's on my blog. I just need to look it up and stick it in here. I was actually looking at this going, I knew there was something I need to put in here. What was it? And now I remember what it is. I'm staying here. Maybe during the break I can track it down if I can get online. There's this great graphic that the society has produced where you have the great crowd and they're looking upward. But they're not looking at Christ. They're not looking at Michael. They're not looking at God. They're looking at this small group of elderly people. They're looking to the anointed class, and the anointed class is looking up to heaven toward Christ. So you see, the average Jehovah's Witness, he gets the benefits only as he is associated with and dependent upon and obedient to the anointed class. And then the anointed class has direct access to God. All right? So, what we have then is in 1974, 4.5 million partook. Were there. 0.24% partook. Look at the percentage. That's the important thing. In 1980, 5.7 attended. 0.17% partook. 88, 9.2, around 9,000 partook, about 0.1%. 1994, 12.28. See the numbers going up? 12.28 million attended on the Memorial Supper. 0.07 partook. 2001, 15.3 million. 0.056% partook, though the number went up slightly. Remember, these are older folks, so they don't really worry themselves too much about that. And in 2008, the last time I could get numbers on the number of partakers, and this is interesting, they're not telling us the number of partakers anymore. But the last time I could get numbers, almost 8 million people worldwide attended the Memorial Supper. Remember, there are only 14 million Mormons, and that includes every Jack Mormon on the planet. So you've got 17.8 million people worldwide gathering for the Memorial Supper, and again, about 0.056% partook of all of those people. Now, the reason for this, and the reason that the number is going down, I will explain after we take our break. That means you have to come back. And I know you're sitting on pins and needles. You're not even going to be able to eat anything because you're going to be so excited to find out why is that number going down. I've always wondered.